following announcement has been paid for by Wild Games Productions. We're here together for another Roll for Initiative podcast. I'm sitting here with Nick.
Hello, everybody.
And the great Sal from the Great Sal Podcast.
Hello.
We're here on Volume 4, issue number 166.
Sweet.
Yeah, so this week we're back after a long hiatus. Right now we're in the con season, so a lot of us are moving around, grooving. I know Matt right now currently is at Gen Con, probably finishing up his day right now and probably heading back home soon with his girlfriend. And I noticed that he popped the question too.
Yes, he
At
did.
Gen Con.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh man, I love that guy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's what I said.
He's now my new best friend.
Yeah, he is legendary right now in my book.
Like John Cena legendary or anyway, he
and a huge sigh comes over the airwaves.
Well, I'm sorry though. I was just, that was Sal's, big fan of it. So anyway, yeah. So he at Gen Con. So congratulations to Matt as he.
Congratulations, absolutely.
Yes.
So hopefully he'll come back with some good story, maybe some recordings, hopefully from Gen Con.
And that's the hardest time to lead the convention is on Sunday.
Yeah.
Because you're standing around. It's 2:00 in the afternoon. And you're like, I don't want to go.
It's like,
I don't want to have this to end ever.
Yeah.
Meh, it's gonna end.
I know. It's such a bittersweet end to the convention.
Should I ask why John Cena's music is going off right now? Sal. Yeah. Apparently John Cena is calling Sal right now.
I'm sorry, what?
The heck was that?
That was John Cena's entrance music. I don't know why Sal played that, but sorry, folks.
Okay. You're now entering the Twilight Zone.
Yeah, so we're recording in January. Anyway.
Here we are.
We've just had 15 shows in a row. Sal is drinking nonstop.
A marathon.
They've all been in January and February.
So, Nick, what have you been doing?
Well, as far as the gaming situation, like our listeners, I think I've said before, we're alternating between campaigns. I think it's working the best. Just running Star Wars D6. I'm doing the Anomalous Subsurface Environment, Land of a Thousand Towers thing, and I'm using the Adventures Dark and Deep rules for that. And just did the last session. It was mine, and I have to give some props to my gaming group here. Just the look on their faces,
Yeah,
when they ended up in a certain area of the dungeon, and they found some papers. If anybody's not familiar with Land of a Thousand Towers, it's very gonzo, over the top. It's basically Thundar the Barbarian with goblins with shotguns. So it's I don't know how else you could describe it, but
with shotguns.
Yeah, goblins with shotguns. I mean, what more could you want? And they found a whole bunch of papers left over from some scientists from the Anomalous Subsurface Environment, and they're reading through it. And this stuff I actually found it from another person who ran the same thing, and he was posting on dragonsfoot.org in their campaign journals. And I liked it so much, I picked it up for my campaign.
Okay.
because he wrote it up so well in a way to where you're reading through this, and he put in like parentheses areas of like saying, okay, several pages missing, this is blotted out, blah blah blah. Like you found this three ring binder that's all beat up, and you're reading through this. It's like a technical manual about the subsurface, anomalous subsurface environment, and they're reading through it, and they're the only person who could read quote unquote ancient tongue, or one of the few people in the group is reading it. He's reading through it. So because I had it, okay, you read this to everybody. Nobody else can read this besides you and a few other people, because most of the party cannot read ancient tongue. So he's reading it out loud. They're all listening, and everybody's faces started to kind of screw up and like, what the heck did we just get ourselves into? So the look on their faces was priceless, because the last word they read was dragon. So, and what was it? Somebody in the group said, "What was that last word?" Dragon. Okay, time to go. That was priceless. I love the look of terror on their faces. It was great. So that was the highlight of that game session. And this coming weekend, we're going to do Star Wars D6 in my friend Jeff's new house that he has, and helped him last game session move in. Beautiful house. Oh my gosh. Victorian era house. It's 3 stories. Oh my God, it's magnificent. And he's got a humongous basement. He's gonna have the ultimate gaming area by far. It's gonna be so sweet. It's like there's 4 or 5 rooms, I forget. But one room is going to be the gaming room. He's going to have another room that's going to be just like for wargaming. He's going to have a sand table, and the other room is going to be the bar. So we're going to have a bar area. Mm-hmm. It's going to be amazing. So, yeah, that's what's been going on recently in my gaming life. How about you, Vince?
I haven't been gaming much lately. I've been mostly just, farting around, doing this and that, trying to clean up my room here and reorganize it. I actually have been thinking about, because I was talking to James Spawn of Bower Rider Games. You know him, obviously.
Yeah.
He and I were discussing a couple weeks ago about a street-level DC Heroes type game, involving like Arrow and Flash TV show.
Okay, yeah.
Excuse me. And we were both thinking about I know he was going to run a game like that, and he got me back into that idea that I started a couple of years ago. So I've been kind of looking over, and I recommended him get the Batman, the role-playing game, the one that was the spin-off of the DC Heroes from the
Mayfair?
Yeah, the Mayfair 90s game. They had a
I remember
Batman
that one,
which kept everything like street level, which he wanted. So hopefully it went well for him. He hasn't really updated. I haven't really been online that much because I've been working and putting my face down to the grind, trying to get a promotion at work, so. Yeah.
Sucking up to the boss.
Well, not really. Just mostly just working. Everything's been like nonstop work.
Yeah, whatever you want to call it. I mean, that's fine.
Shut up, Nick. Kiss my grits.
That's okay. I suck up to the boss, too.
Yeah. So that's really about it. I mean, I really want to play a game, but I don't want to go to the local gaming store, really. I'd rather just play online. That way, I find more people that way.
Yeah.
I don't have to deal with kids, mostly. I hate playing with kids. No offense to people that have kids. I just don't want to play with kids.
It could be very difficult. We did a show about that, gaming with children, and just how to handle all that, I think.
I just don't
Didn't we? A while back?
Yeah, we did. Yeah. You and Chad had a lot to say in that show.
Yeah. And because, I've got some experience with it. It can be difficult.
I just don't want to go to a gaming store, be all excited about a game, and then have to sit there while Tim's son, little Joey, is trying to figure out which dice to roll and what dice to pull out of his nose to roll for his hit. I mean, come on.
Yeah.
I just want to play.
Or I want to be a fairy. I want to be a fairy. Well, you just can't be a fairy right now. But I want to call the fairies then. I want to make the fairies come. All right, terrific.
Yeah.
Yes, they're man-eating fairies, and they come in and they rip all the flesh off your body. Game over.
Well, I understand the importance of not constantly cursing and everything.
Right.
No, that has nothing to do with it.
No, that's my issue with kids. I mean, I can't really just freely talk and play a game. I have to watch everything I say because I don't want to offend somebody. Anyway, Sal, what have you been doing?
It's
Well, I've been
speaking
working
of offensive,
on
Sal.
a what?
I said, speaking of offensive, Sal.
No, you haven't offended me.
Oh, okay.
not yet.
I've been working on a Labyrinth Lord campaign setting.
really?
Ooh, Labyrinth Lord.
Yeah, I love Labyrinth Lord, and I've been pretty much hanging on tight to my DCC book because I'm taking little bits and pieces from it.
Yeah.
So because the people that I'm looking to play with, they are big fans of the DCC systems, so I figured I'll take some elements that are familiar to them, and I'm going to port them into Labyrinth Lord.
Oh.
But I'm working on the campaign on the world because, and I'm not going to get in depth with the players. A lot of times I've wasted so much time on building worlds where you go into the tavern and the barkeeper has a name, but then every waitress in there has a name, and the third guy at the table should be this guy, and because then the players go in there for about 30 seconds and then leave and never go back.
Yeah.
So I'm going with a different angle of basically not going to, well, put it this way. If I were to, okay, Vince, you are from Long Island, you live in Texas.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you tell me the history of the island of New Zealand? Can you tell me like their history from, let's go 100 years ago.
Well, yes, it actually started. No, I can't.
Right. So now, and that's in the age of technology we have. We have internet, we have phones, we have everything. So now,
Right.
I don't care. Oh, sorry.
well, that's the thing. You grew up doing what you did. You didn't care about what was over there because it's not pertinent to you.
Right.
So why come up with a gigantic world of, okay, well, over on here, 16,000 years ago, these elves no longer existed. Like, nobody cares.
Right.
And you are in a medieval fantasy world. You're growing up in this town. Okay, now, and I know a lot of people get bored with, oh, I don't want to play a farmer. You're not playing a farmer. You grew up as a farmer. Now you're a hero. You're an adventurer. Go out and do something. But growing up, you didn't know anything past the mountains because you grew up in this house, in this town.
Right.
So the town, you have the, let's call it 50 years of history, which is, we did farming, we traded with these people, and there's another place over the mountains where people go to find their adventure. But that's all you're going to know. And in coming to those terms, I've never been in contact with those terms before. For me, it's always been every detail of the fantasy world must be created. And it doesn't matter because now when you create all that, you're forcing your players to get over there. Oh my God, you got to get to the Jade Island because I got to show you the awesome thing I made. Oh, this way, they're going to run in the sandbox the way they want to, the way the adventure will lead them, and the way their actions will take them, as opposed to me wanting to show them all this awesome stuff I made. Because every DM has it. When you come up with a great idea, you really want them to see it. Sometimes they don't. So rather than railroading, I've been working on this just to kind of, and a lot of it has been working on DMing. Not so much, what the players are going to do, but my DMing, because I've had to reevaluate a lot of things and change up the way it works, and we'll see how it goes.
As you said that, I'm like, I did pick up from Origins. I finally broke down and bought the Dungeon Crawl Classics hardbound, and that's like right out of there. It makes a lot of sense. It's like you don't have to make a huge elaborate world if you don't want to. You could just make it about, here's the hills, here's the mountains, here's the forest over here, there's some rivers, maybe a lake or two, coastline, a few villages, done.
Yep.
And this is all you, because that's all your characters know. They've maybe heard legends and rumors and stuff, what's going on beyond the mountains or through the forests there, but that's it. They don't know, they haven't been there. So that makes it, and that lends some element of mystery to the to the campaign and to the players, because I think something like Dungeon Crawl Classics, like you said, is we're there's a lot of experienced gamers. We become kind of jaded in our age and our time, so this kind of harkens back to some of the mystery that was behind the game. You're kind of learning things. You don't know everything again. I want to say you don't know everything again, but you're trying to go back and have that sense of awe and mystery about the game because you were learning it. It was new. Mm-hmm. So I think it kind of goes back to that. I think that's really cool.
Yeah, and that's one of the things that I've taken into when being a DM for a long time. I've just been like, well, that's how I DM that way. Boom, done. I've been now rethinking a lot of things, just more or less just to how can I make it better for everyone else? Mm-hmm. Because you get feedback, and a lot of people don't like I'm holding up the air quotes, the realistic medieval society. They don't want that in their fantasy games sometimes.
Yeah.
They don't want to be, we're poor mud farmers, so, we got really nothing else. But DCC handles that really well with okay, you are good with a staff because you used to be a shepherd, so you had the shepherd's hook and you were able to, boot. So that's your reason for knowing that.
Right.
You were good with a knife because you were a butcher, so your dad was a butcher and your family was butchers, so you kind of you feel comfortable around knives. That picks up in the back, so now you give that to the player. If the player rolls it or if they choose it, great. Then they tend to run with that so much more, mm-hmm. as opposed to, okay, well, here you go. You start off with 3 copper because your family's poor, and your mom makes clay barrels. Your mom makes she's a cooper and she makes barrels. So there you go. Go with that. And they're like, oh, okay. But now you give them a reason why they're doing this and why they're going out and why they're making this, and they tend to feed off of you, and then you get to feed off of them, and it works out better. And I've had a great time doing this because it's been in my head of like, wow, I could change this. I could change me, which is better.
And that's what sort of the approach I took when I found Anomalous Subsurface Environment, which, by the way, is written for Labyrinth Lord rules, and I highly, highly recommend it if you haven't picked it up yet. The Land of 1,000 Towers, it's a real basic map. There's just in each village or anything, it's maybe a paragraph or 2 at the most, mm-hmm. and in some certain areas around where it's, maybe have a few paragraphs, if that, of, where some of the interesting geographical features of the place. But there's no real huge elaborate history to everything. There is a history, but the players don't need to know that. The characters definitely don't know it. So it's like, and maybe later on they will discover all that, but it's all up in the air to see where they want to go exactly. You don't have to force them.
Yeah, that's like, when I started doing this, literally, I'm like, this is going to be a quickie thing. I'm just going to, I'll write this out. And I sat down the normal way I was going to do it. And while I was doing it, I was flipping through the DCC book, reading it. And I just started reading some of the stuff. And I'm like, wait, maybe I can do this. This might be easier. Maybe I'll do it this way. This might be better. Maybe, and it starts changing. And again, so now it starts to change your personal outlooks on things.
Right.
To make it better for the players. Because honestly, I'm not doing this for me. I want to do this because I want these guys to have a great game.
Right.
And then come back and tell me what a great game it was, because that makes me feel better.
Exactly. That's exactly what I was thinking. I found out how I've evolved as far as my DMing style just in the past 12, 13 years, where I've really gone consistently being a dungeon master or referee, GM, whatever you want to call it. Mm-hmm. And when I started back in 2002 with our Hackmaster group, I was very detail orientated. I would spend literally days going over the adventure and trying to think everything out, how things might go, have all the stat blocks ready, blah, 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 on and on and on. And I found out over a while, I'm like, and I think a lot of it had to do with how my players influenced how I DM'd. over time I found out, you know what? I don't need to get myself stressed out the night before the game and thinking if I have everything ready.
Mm-hmm.
I should just take a little time, read over the adventure, or at least the parts where I think they're going to go. And sometimes that's entirely wrong.
Yeah.
But even then, it's like, just take a couple hours, or just, take one evening after work, do what you need to do, done. Don't have to worry about it. And I found out that my style is now becoming a little more freeform, and I find it very liberating. I'm not tied to a particular script or area. And it does not mean I don't like modules, because I love them, because I'm a lazy DM, because I don't think I could write my own adventures. But I find, as far as the rules and trying to remember all the details, is not exactly all too important. So I become a little more freeform in my DMing style. I don't get all wrapped up in the details anymore, and it makes, I think, a little more fun game.
I noticed, like, doing this now, everybody's married, and you have less of the time. I remember I used to be able to sit down on a Saturday and spend all day working on a campaign.
Oh my God!
And,
for a time, I was like, even after I was married, for the first 7-8 years when my wife and I were married, I was a stay-at-home dad. Besides taking care of the kids, I had boatloads of time.
Right.
But now I'm back
it's
at work.
not so much. Right.
Yeah, I'm back to work, and sometimes you're working overtime, and the wife's doing stuff, and the kids are doing things, and so time's at a premium.
So yeah, no, and then you get the idea, you write it down, and even if you just put the skeleton notes of write this down real quick, do this, then you're like, okay, I can come back to that later because I know what I was thinking.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just the time crunch on itself and you're just saving more time in doing this. You're trying to put together this whole thing for yourself, and you don't have the time to write everything out like you used to and have it. This just makes everything easier, and it makes you it keeps you from stressing out too.
Exactly.
Because sometimes when you start getting that did I do everything? Did I finish everything? And then you're just crazed about it, and this just gets you. A calm DM is so much better.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. Oh my God. And all the times that I've been a DM in a Hackmaster tournament and making sure I had everything right. And oh God, I ran one tournament. I was the.
Wow. I could see you being really obsessed and trying to get everything right for a tournament, but for local games, nah. I just jot things down on a little, Post-it, and just go with it.
Right. Or if it's your home group, it's the group of people you've been hanging out with for years and years, and you get used to each other. You're like family. You know each other's little idiosyncrasies, and everybody's. And I think, at least I hope, that my group that I'm in, they're used to my style of DMing, and my friend Jeff, his style of DMing, and I have to say, I think he's a better DM than me. But I mean, because he comes up with some really amazing stuff, some amazing NPCs, and I don't know. It's very liberating now that I don't have to spend a whole lot of time getting into worrying about the minutia of everything. And I think it's just because I've become more confident as a DM over the years. It's like, how are they going to know if I screwed up on a rule? If I don't let on to it, they won't know.
All right.
So some DMing
that's what I've been
tips. Yeah.
Well, that's the show this week, folks.
Good night, everybody.
Yay.
Man, it's really cold outside in January.
Oh, jeez.
Gonna have to go forge outside into 6 feet of snow.
Yeah, definitely.
Both ways uphill.
So, Nick.
Yes, sir.
Stars.
Stars, yes. We have one new star review on iTunes.
Star review on iTunes. Okay.
Yes. It's 5 stars. And just to remind everybody that you can go to iTunes Store, type in Roll for Initiative on the search, and just navigate your way to ratings and reviews, and you can give us a review. And we are 4 reviews away from getting 200 reviews. So we're at 196.
Nice.
Come on, people.
4 more reviews.
4 more reviews.
Or in Nick's case, 4 more star reviews.
Whatever. Sorry. Sometimes English fails me. Mouth no worky. But here we go. This is from Bob Sill. And he says, a fabulous podcast and 5 stars.
Nice.
He says, hello, RFI guys.
Hello.
Before this review starts, I am wondering if the reviews read in Christopher Walken's voice is still even partially in effect.
Nick?
I don't know. Maybe. We'll see.
Well, we could start
We'll come back to that.
We could start a new one. We can have Sal do it in wrestling promo style.
There you go.
But Christopher Walken is so much more entertaining.
Christopher Walken is so much more irritating, you said?
Entertaining.
Oh, entertaining.
And irritating.
Yes.
Depends on your point of view. Anyway, he says, I love this podcast. I also am a strong believer of clerics with edged weapons. Ha 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 ha. Or just any melee weapon. Oh. Around early 2010, I heard about some podcast covering all things AD&D First Edition, but I gave it a little thought because I was playing 3.5 at the time.
It's okay.
However, I started listening through the entire backlog earlier this summer. As of now, I have caught up. Wow, he has a boatload of time, you lucky guy.
Yeah.
The podcast is a wonderful source of experienced DMs, interpretations, rules, and a plethora of genuine, authentic, and Grognardian advice. Plethora. Would you say we had a plethora?
Plethora?
See, what is a plethora? I've sent all my friends. Are starting to DM here, even if they don't yet play First Edition. Okay, so that was kind of weird worded, but thank you for the wonderful hours of listening, and I hope you all keep recording. So, thank you, Bob Sill. We hope to keep recording too.
Actually, this is the last show ever, and
damn it! I knew it.
This is Roll for Initiative signing off forever, and
I am the kiss of death.
Sal is the person that jumped. He's like
I'm like the Summer Glau of podcasts.
Yeah, you are.
Who is at Gen Con, by the way?
You're like the James Stamos of podcasts. Every show he's on dies.
Sal is like the Bruce Campbell of movies.
Oh, hey.
Wait a minute. I will take that. I will take that as a compliment.
Yeah, hey, I love Bruce Campbell, but every time he's in a movie, he seems to tank for some reason. I don't know why.
No, it's because you're watching the wrong movies.
Well, I am looking forward to his TV show coming out.
Very excited about that.
Yeah, I want to see Ash vs. Evil Dead. It looks like cheese in its ultimateness, so...
Good.
I think that's on Stars, I believe, but anyway.
Yes. We can always use more cheese.
Yes. Especially cheddar. We all love cheddar.
I like cheddar.
Are you enjoying the show you're listening to right now? Want to help support the show? Why not head over to the Patreon site, patreon.com/WGP. That's patreon.com/WGP. And help support the network for as little as $1.50 a month. That's right, $1.50 a month goes a long way. Thank you.
So, we're going to talk about this week what is the most talked about or most requested in our emails as we rummage through the email bag.
Was that the email?
Actually, that was Sal's dog. He was coming in live from Pennsylvania, and he wants to say "ruff, ruff, ruff, ruff." So, what about our emails was the most talked about email, as Sal's dog had pointed out, is designing adventures and just basically as it'll kind of tie in what Nick was talking about, adventure design, and sitting there with all this time with your papers spread out and Sal taking up an entire afternoon trying to plan his adventure, which he can no longer do anymore because we're older and we have responsibilities now. And
boo responsibility.
Oh yeah, I remember you used to get home from school when we were a kid, and we'd spend all afternoon with the books, and even if we were just reading and just talking, we just still did stuff. But now it's just like, meh. Lucky if you can read like a passage in the book if you have enough time for that. So when you're sitting down for your adventure for the week, Nick, what do you do now when you're planning for your adventure? I mean, I know you said you don't really plan out like you used to, but
right. I guess for starters is whenever it is my turn to DM for the group, which I'm really enjoying like every other month now. Now I don't feel so much under the gun, which I'm putting this out to everybody. If you could do something like that in your group, it does two things. If you can alternate between two DMs, one person doing one campaign and another person doing another, it does two things. One, it keeps you like from being stressed out, like I said, and two, it gets the group a little more variety. You know, I mean, instead of like maybe, because now in my group we're doing Star Wars D6, and mine's basically a Gonzo version of D&D, two entirely different things, and it keeps it fresh and lively. So I'm just putting that out there. If you could do something like that in your gaming group that can allow such a thing, I highly recommend it. So see if you can go along with that. But for me, personally, when I do prep work, after after I have some time to do anything, right now I might just put a few notes like in Word or anything like that. If that, I'll keep a lot of stuff just in my head, and just think about how I might approach a particular situation. I will read through parts of the adventure, the dungeon, and certain areas, depending on what. For example, if they haven't started off at a dungeon right off for the campaign, I just read through what I have for wherever they're starting out, village, town, wherever it may be, and a little bit on the surrounding area, and that's pretty much it. I'm trying to keep it as loose as I can, not worry about statting everything out right away. I kind of gone into the habit of like just giving everything max hit points.
Yeah, well, it's easier.
That might seem like if I could say this, a kind of a jerk move. Mm-hmm. But it's easier for me. I don't have to keep on rolling hit points for everything.
Big jerk.
So, well, what can I say? I'm not evil like you, but I'm working on it.
But all right, so let's just say you don't have a pre-made adventure. Let's say you're going to sit there and you're going to be like, well, this week we're going to do a custom adventure, and it's going to be. When I sit down with these ideas that I throw on Post-its or like maybe a word pad, I usually start with an item, because all my campaigns usually revolve around some type of item or villain or some type of thing they have to quest for.
Right, the big MacGuffin.
Yeah, people just seem to like that a lot, so it usually works pretty well for me.
Yeah, it's an easy trope to go to. Either be the One Ring or Excalibur, or the rod that helps worshiping the giant spaghetti monster in the sky.
Yeah.
The MacGuffin ones is a good trope to fall upon.
And I'll start with that. I'll write out that little item, and I'll write maybe a little tiny background about that item, maybe a paragraph, just enough that it'll give it some flavor. And if the players ask a little bit about it in rumors, or ask, what's about this item, I can quickly look at it and just make up something that the villagers will say about it. Because, chances are that no villager is actually going to know exactly the history of this item. They're just making up stuff that they've heard. So it kind of rolls with that flow. Mm-hmm. What is your take, Mr. Sal?
Since you cleared your throat and you want to talk,
I know.
That's, again, sorry. No, excuse me. That's exactly what I've been working with. About, you start out with the one spot and you say, okay, for instance, I got hit with a thought. I'm like, this would be great as an NPC. It was just a name. A name came to me, and I said, okay, this name will be an awesome name for an NPC. I'm going to save it. So I saved it, had it, and then I saw something on TV, and I said, well, if he did this, oh my God, that could be the NPC. So now I tied that to the name. So now I have this little thing building, this snowballs building of, I'm going to do this to make this NPC. So now why is this NPC here? Is he a good guy? Is he a bad guy? Okay, he's going to be a bad guy. Why is he a bad guy? And then it depends. It depends on the people I'm playing with. This particular group that is forming now, they are more or less new players. A lot of them played World of Darkness, and a lot of 3.5. Or they've looked at 3.5, and at some point they played that, and then that's their extent of playing. Okay. So they're not jaded players. So I'm not saying that I don't have to do work, but I don't have to figure out, because like if I were to grab my old group of players and say, all right guys, the necromancers, they'd be like, oh, come on, man, like it's the second 100th millionth time we've done this, and we found this guy with this and this. These guys I can take and say, all right, I want to do this, and I can lead them a little more of a cinematic story just to get, because that they're into the story. They're not in, these guys that we're going to be playing with aren't the hack and slashers. These guys are we want to know a story, and we want to make our heroes. Like, that's them. So this will be easy for me. It'll be a cinematic story of, let's run it this way, and I could say, okay, this guy's doing this, and this guy's doing this, and instead of doing hey, go to the inn, find your work, I can get them in another way, and they'll appreciate that. They'll be like, oh, that's so cool. So it'll be a little easier on me, but you start from that one little kernel, and you just start building up around it. And it's been, again, just like when you ask people, I used to come up with the 1,000-year history of the elves that lived in the woods. Oh, but they're extinct now, so well, then who cares? Then who's going to know? Somebody might know somewhere down the road and be like, oh, well, those elves, they're extinct. They've been extinct for 1,000 years. Oh, really? What happened? Oh, they were killed off by this magical disease that only killed elves. Oh, and I never heard from them again? No. Oh, okay, cool. Done. We don't need to know we don't need to know the elves' names and who was the first one who caught the disease and we don't need to know that unless it has to do with the story. And all it did was bog me down. So this way, you build the one little kernel, you have, the rod, or you have the person, or you have the item and the spell, the book, whatever it is, that'll be what you build off of. And to me, that works so much better.
Cool.
And I know one thing that I've been doing when prepping, for adventure and DMing or something original. I think I'm almost going to. I think I'm going to a point where, let me premise this with I think there's two types of approaches to DMing a campaign. There's one that's very thought out, laid out, where all the different modules are going to be, the history of the world and all that. Very, I don't know if you want to call it railroady, but it's very detailed and it's very much on the set path. But this is where everybody's, from one point or another, this is where they're going to end up. I think I'm going now to the other approach, which is kind of more of a sandbox type of campaign gaming, which is a little more freeform, which I'm starting to enjoy because I don't feel like I'm tied to one particular storyline. I'm having the party, the player characters, wherever their nose takes them, that's going to be where the story's going to go, and I'm gonna play off that instead of them playing off me most of the time, as far as my NPCs and stuff, which I will have, but it's going to be more how they're going to drive the story and how I'm going to react to that. And it tends to be a little more, I think, a sense of freeform for them. They don't feel like they're tied into one particular place. I mean, yes, we got the dungeon, the anomalous subsurface environment. We also have the town of Denethix and all that around, and but as far as where they want to go and how they want to do it, entirely up to them. There's no big master plot storyline. There might be a couple of things that might come up depending on where they go, but I just have it, okay, here's the big mega dungeon, here's the city. It's up to you guys what you want to do. It's up to you guys where you want to go. Whoever you want to interact with, it's entirely up to you. I'm good with it. Wherever your noses take you, if it's in trouble or not, most of the time it's in trouble, then I'm going to go with it. And I find it a very good way of like DMing. It doesn't take a whole lot of prep work, which I really enjoy. Because I can keep a lot of stuff just in my mind now. I don't have to jot down a whole lot of details anymore. Which I kind of enjoy. I kind of like playing just off the seat of my pants here, and just seeing what comes up with. I am really surprised with how, for me, how I can just come up with stuff spontaneously while in the game, and how it plays out, and just go with it, and it makes them really fun. It makes it fun for me as a DM, and I think for the players too.
Well, I think that's amazing, because if you listened to this show 3 years ago, Nick, you would have never said that. You'd be like, "Oh no, I know. I like to write everything down and keep to the script." And if it goes
4 years ago, you're right. I was like that.
Off the cuff, I get nervous and I get lost, and it's just like, now you're like, I like it. It's just amazing. And
yeah, you know what? And I think in that time, Vince, from then and now, I think I was getting kind of bored.
Yeah, it is.
You know what? I think I kind of got into a rut. I was bored, not with what I was doing as far as what I was playing, but my style. I was bored with the style, how I was DMing. And I thought, you know what? I got to get out of my comfort zone. I need to do something different and make it more lively for me. Yeah. Probably on the other end, how the players see it, they probably won't even see a damn bit of difference. But what's going on behind the screen and what I'm doing, I'm being a little more freeform, a little bit more sandboxy, and I'm trying to and I'm almost kind of making a amalgam of like having set adventures within a sandbox setting. It just doesn't matter where they're going to go. I mean, if they end up in their third and fourth level and they end up at Tomb Horrors, so be it. You know, that's on them. That's where their noses led them. So what?
I'm pretty sure if now that you're doing this, after a little while of doing this, you'll see that some of the stories that your players come up with will be all the cuff stuff that you've done, all the on the fly stuff compared to, the adventures. They're like, oh, we went this cool module. Now it'll be just like, oh my god, I can't believe Nick threw this at us and we did this. And you'll notice all the stories because all the stories that people say about my games are all the ones that are just on the fly, off the cuff, weird, off the wall stuff.
Yeah. One of the things that I like doing with this one campaign, for example, that like I said, off the cuff sort of thing. I had an idea how I was going to do it, but I didn't really know how it was going to pan out. For example, in the Land of 1,000 Towers, the gods, quote unquote gods, aren't what you think they are, as far as how normally you would think gods are in a fantasy role playing game. I don't want to reveal all too much, because
is it Tower of the White Elephant sort of?
It's more technologically driven. How about that?
Okay, fair enough.
The gods are more like computers. How about that?
Cool.
But they're so advanced, they have godlike powers, and they can bestow spells upon their clerics. But kind of taking off that, how that was written in the anomalous subsurface environment, the Land of 1,000 Towers setting, because the guy who wrote it said, you can have literally hundreds, if not thousands, of different gods, and they could be gods of anything. And I thought, okay, if this is like a future Earth, how it is written, like 4,000 or 5,000 years in the future, after some apocalypse of some sort, then what could I kind of bring from our world, our real world? Then I'm thinking, duh, pop culture stuff. So I got someone who's worshiping basically Iron Man, aka known as the Stark.
Ah, nice.
Yes, I got another person. Their god, he's actually he's a Jedi.
Oh.
His gods are like Obi-Wan and Luke Skywalker, and they have a Jedi temple and everything. And I just winged it with them, and it's like one of the youngest kids in the group. I go, okay, you're playing a cleric. What kind of cleric do you want to be? Well, I want to do this. I like to be a Jedi. I'm like, okay. And he kind of looked at me like, what? I could do that? I'm like, yeah. Okay. So your gods, you go to your temple and you see up on the giant God's eye, which is like a giant television screen, you see Obi-Wan Kenobi, and he's talking to you. And this is what you might have to do on your quest when you're going, blah, blah, blah. And, yeah, they're running with it. They're like, oh, that's pretty cool. They still haven't caught on yet what the gods actually are, but I had this idea. I'm like, why don't I use pop culture icons from like movies and comic books and television, and those are the gods now. So
Yeah.
and it's pretty cool right now, because now the one Sherry, she's playing a Cavalier who worships the Stark. Her shield is from the temple of the god of justice and truth, Captain America. So she has Captain America shield, and her plate mail is like, red and gold. So she's like, oh, this is pretty neat. I'm like, hey, cool. So there. That
It comes down to knowing the players too. Your players all would enjoy that.
Mm-hmm.
That's good. That's, again, you can't do stuff like that for a con game.
No.
Or if you're gonna, it's like,
well, you don't know. You never know.
Like, I know if I were to, for the people that I would go to run for, if I were to try to slide in any sort of anime reference, they'd be all over it, because they're a real big anime group. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And if they were like, oh my God, that's Howl's Floating Castle. That's this, that's that. I couldn't do anything like that. But I know none of them are horror fans, so as far as when I say that, I mean, they don't watch they would have no idea about half these B movies, or, so if I threw something in, and I've had it happen so far with just mentioning things, they're like, oh my God, that sounds amazing. And I'm like, really? It was a shitty movie. But it's if you know your audience, who you're playing with, that stuff comes out easy, and the inspiration can come from anywhere.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. That's a good point you're making. Know your audience. I think that might be another thing that people can get out of this, is your audience being your players. What do they like? I remember doing this a long time ago, and I did it again recently. Is like, I kind of took a poll from everybody in the group. It's like, okay, I'm going to do this campaign. What do you like? What do you dislike? What are some things I can improve on? I actually ask my players from time to time to critique me. It's like, how am I doing as a DM? What am I doing good? And what am I doing that's not so good? And that will help me improve. I don't know if a whole lot of DMs do that.
I think they'll do a cursory after the game. They go, so did you guys have fun? And everybody go, oh yeah. And then they'll go, how did I do? And they'll go, oh yeah, great. Yeah. Because who wants to say, everybody has that one friend who'll be like, no, you're terrible.
Yes,
yeah.
Yes, the comic book store guy. It was the worst adventure ever.
Worst session ever. And
I can't believe you did that.
Nobody just wants to come out, and if you're doing something they didn't like, nobody wants to be the negative.
Negative Nelly,
so,
yeah.
Right. So you really have to trust your friends in order to ask stuff like that.
Oh, I trust mine. I mean,
yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, that's one thing I do. I mean, what about you, Vince, as far as prepping and improving on a campaign? Or some other things that you do?
Well, I've said my prepping style and my improving style, but I think the one question that people say we never really go over is What about you're in the middle of your adventure, you're on the fly, or you're doing your thing like I do, and what you're doing and what Sal pretty much does himself. What happens when you get to a point that the players are just throwing you for a loop and you don't know what to do, and you're sitting there going,
God, that's every freaking game night.
And you're sitting there going, so instead of sitting there going, what I've noticed that I'd like to do all the time is I would like to throw things at them that actually make them stand there and think about it, like a mystery box, or maybe something on the wall that's written a certain way. They have to sit, so they're sitting there trying to figure this out. Meanwhile, while they're going over in the group what to do, you're sitting there in your mind, okay, well, they're doing this now, I can think ahead what I want to do next. I do that a lot. Make them explore things on their own and interact in the group with each other while it gives me a chance to think. What were you saying, Sal?
No, I was thinking, like, you're saying this. Okay, an example of back in the day. This is years and years ago. I started running a game where I had in my head, I came up with what was going to be amazing. This was going to be so much fun. They were going to find, and it's a revamp of something that's been done to death now, and still, but they were going to find Space Marine armor. So, it was a D&D game, and they were going to find in an ancient tomb rusted out Space Marine armor. And once they powered it, they could power it through magic, and they would have power armor. One person would have power armor. So that was the idea. And I had everything detailed, perfect, what was going to happen. I drew out the tomb, I drew out the armor. I was so excited for this. So we're all talking, and just while we're sitting around the table waiting the game, and then somebody says, "Oh man, well that was like in the one game we played when they found the spaceship. Worst thing ever." And you're like, "Wait, what? What do you mean?" They're like, "Oh God, I hate that whole technology and D&D crap. Oh my God." And I'm like, "Yeah, it sucks, right?" And they're like, "Oh God, it's terrible, worst thing ever." And the more they talked and they were not kind about it, the more I found out this would have been the worst campaign. So now this 2-week-long ordeal that I sat and worked on, I had to scrap. So
man,
I ditched the power armor and just gave them, it was an offshoot of something else. But, everything else pretty much stayed the same, and I tied it in more to, instead of being futuristic, it was ancient. I just pushed it back to ancient, and I left the future part out. It's so futuristic that it was from the past. I kind of just got rid of all the mind-trippy future 40K stuff and threw in, this is an ancient set of armor from an ancient hero, blah, blah, blah. And it ran, and like I said, it wasn't epic. It was fun. Everybody had a good time, and they came up with their own little shticks that they were going to do. But for the most part, I had to audible because just hearing everybody, I would have been lynched. Because they were telling us exactly how that game was terrible. We found a spaceship and there were robots on the spaceship. It was terrible. And I think everybody knows the campaign, but
yeah. And I thought that was a fun one. I mean, I like.
But that's the thing. It's your players. The people I played with were strict D&D people, leaning towards the no guns in D&D, no black powder in D&D. They were that leaning towards that. So that was their view. And then there are people I've played with in the past who I always thought, I said, they would probably enjoy that a little more. And I just never brought it back out because I'm like, it happened. It's past. But sometimes you just got to call the audible and just scramble and find something else. And even though, you put work in and you put time and you think it's innovative and the most brilliant thing ever, sometimes you just got to change it up for the sake of the players. And that's why you're there. You're not there, just to tell your story.
Yeah. Or you, like I was going to say, you like that moment. I had a situation a few years ago where actually this was the situation which actually had me take a break from DMing for a couple of years. They were going through Temple of Elemental Evil, or at least the Hackmaster version, Temple as Existential Evil, and they found the that golden orb skull. And then they got to the point where I think they maybe went to the first level, and then they found through various different ways a quote-unquote shortcut to find that orb. If anybody's familiar with the adventure, you find this orb, which looks like a little itty-bitty golden skull. One of the things, if you destroy it, it destroys the dungeon. It destroys the temple. So they were able to figure it out. Actually, they were able to, well, they found this thing. They knew it was some sort of artifact. So the first thing they thought, okay, let's destroy it. And I'm like, oh, damn. There's like 3 other levels that they haven't even gone through, and they're going to destroy the thing. And I'm like, okay, I'm going to go with it. Let's see what they come up with. And they destroyed the darn skull. And I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do? And I'm like, okay, so you hear there's this rumbling that you're hearing, and stones are falling from the ceiling and the walls, and it seems like the place is collapsing all about you. And they run out of there, and they see the temple, it like collapses on itself, and all the other 3 or 4 levels of the temple all collapsing. And I said all this, and I'm like, fine, you happy now? You literally destroyed the dungeon. They're like, yeah. What? So I'm like, I just said, I went with it. I'm like, okay, I need to take a break.
Yeah, it's a situations where, despite you try not to give them too much of a hint.
Right.
Like, you give them the hint, but you try not to give them give it. You don't want to just give it out.
And I didn't want to say, no, you can't destroy it, blah, 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 because that's going to ruin the whole campaign.
They'll be angry, and then they'll spend the rest of the campaign trying to destroy it other ways.
Right. I'm like, okay, fine. The hell with it. Destroy it. Right. Go ahead. And I'm like, okay. And I went with it. And I'm like, yeah, they're a unique bunch. It's just, they literally destroyed the dungeon. It's either that or they steal everything out of it. If it's not bolted down, they're taking it. It could it could be chairs.
It's Hackmaster, so they got tons of retainers to carry all that crap for them.
That, and also a cart or a wagon or something. They're doing that even now in the current campaign. Like one of the number 1 priorities when they're in the town, village, wherever, they're going to find a donkey or a draft horse and a wagon. So whatever loot they're going to haul out of the dungeon, they're going to do it. It doesn't matter if it's monetary or it could be like sheets of vellum with nothing.
Vellum's expensive.
Well, there you go. That's like, oh, that's a lot of money. What kind of wood is this chair made out of? I don't know. It's mahogany.
See, that's old school. That's old school
mahogany?
stuff.
Oh, that's worth a lot of money. Damn it. Fell for it again. Yeah, but that is old school. You're absolutely right. If it's not bolted down, they're taking it.
Everything in this dungeon is made out of IKEA plywood.
Yes, so, there you go.
So you guys know.
Or that's why, that's why you just got to be ready for that sort of thing. So, I don't know. Vince
is dead.
I'm not dead. I'm right here. I'm just watching the audio recording.
I don't know. I guess what you could get out of that is you just got to be on your toes as a DM. Like,
yeah,
sometimes if they put you in that moment, you don't want to be the DM who's going to suck the fun out of it and say, oh, you can't do that because blah, blah, blah.
Because blah, blah, blah.
Whatever the case may be. Well, the case may be because you're going to ruin the damn campaign.
Right. Your players are just they're going to spite you and try to do what they did every other way.
Yeah. So you might as well just go with it. If they want to do something, and that goes just the opposite. Those are like, what they did with the Temple of Existential Evil was a smart thing to do. The opposite goes if they want to do a stupid thing. If they want to do something dumb, go with it. I'm not going to stop them. Yeah. It's their characters.
All right. I think maybe that's going to wrap up the show this week.
You think?
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. I think we've chatted on enough about this. If you have any questions, you can email us at rfistaff@gmail.com, or you can head to our website and make a comment at rfipodcast.com. Find us on Facebook. Find us on G+. 570-865-4210 is our hotline. This has been Volume 4, issue number 166. Good night, everybody.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.
The Roll for Initiative podcast is a production of Wild Games Productions in association with D20Radio.com. You can visit us at rfipodcast.com or contact us on our forums at osrgaming.org or even by calling us at 570-865-4210. This podcast is produced for entertainment purposes only. All other uses are prohibited. And remember, if your magic missile spell doesn't automatically hit, you're playing the wrong edition. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you next time on Roll for Initiative.